Now, in his acceptance speech, Msimanga says the DA must look ahead to strengthening the party's hold in Gauteng ahead of next year's elections. Msimanga further called on party members to focus on winning over the trust of Gauteng residents instead of internal battles.
We need to focus our weapons, we need to focus our energy on the opponent which is ahead of us. We will lose great opportunity if we remain internally focused and allow for divisions to creep in the Democratic Alliance. Our job is carved for us. The people of Gauteng are saying to us, you know, we know what is wrong. We want you to show us what is the alternative, what is the way forward, and we have to show the people of Gauteng the way forward. They are demanding, the people of Gauteng are demanding for an economy that works for everybody, not for some. Yes. They are demanding for cities that are able to provide quality services to them. They are demanding police that will face criminals head on and win the fight. They are demanding that our hospitals will be the one that will be providing world-class services. They are demanding that the education of a child that is coming from Alexander will be the same education that a child from Santen will be getting. They are demanding that we are able to ensure that our daughters, our mothers, our grandmothers are safe when they walk on the streets. They are demanding an end to infrastructure collapse, where in Mogale, water now is becoming a scarce commodity. In certain parts of Johannesburg, water is becoming a scarce commodity. They are demanding fairness in jobs. They are demanding that we open opportunities for all. We cannot do this if we continue to be focused and become internally looking. This is what the people of Gauteng are demanding of us.
Now, for some analysis on the DA Provincial Congress in Boksburg, we're joined by Asanda Ngoasheng, political analyst. Asanda, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. There was key coming out of what Helen Zille said earlier on, DA within spitting distance of becoming the biggest party in Gauteng. If we look at the results of the by-elections recently in Gauteng, especially in far-flung areas of Gauteng, in Ekurhuleni, where you've got these small-holding farms mostly dominated by white Afrikaans-speaking people and of Afrikaans origin in general. The DA is seemingly losing its support to the Freedom Front Plus. So my question is the Freedom Front Plus going to make the difference in how the Democratic Alliance performs in Gauteng?
Yes, I think, the DA is actually aware that the Freedom Front Plus is its biggest competitor, not the EFF and the ANC as they claim to be telling people at this point. The Freedom Front Plus is a conservative party. It is a party of people who do hold racist views. We know this and we've seen this, and the DA has moved in that direction as well and has become a political party that supports racist ideas and racist ideals, all done in the name of non-racialism. And if you listen to the speech by Helen Zille, you heard her talk about how, EFF stands for racism and DA stands for non-racism, which is interesting because it shows how outdated Helen Zille's understanding of racism is, because racism, as defined by Merrill-Webster and many other dictionaries for that matter, requires institutional power, which black people simply don't have at this moment in time. And so, at this point, we can conclusively say black people cannot be racist, but white people can, because they have the power. And particularly in a country like South Africa, where we are coming out of apartheid, a system built by white people and upheld by white people, which sought to keep black people out. And it's quite interesting that Helen Zille even compared the ANC to the National Party, when it is the DA that is moving more towards the direction of conservative racist politics, like those seen during the apartheid government. And if you're not sure about what I'm saying, look at how things went in the taxi strike. Look at who was most impacted. Look at the response that the DA didn't give to the people of the Western Cape who were stranded, and the mayor, for instance, refused to give a hall, refused to bring people food and support people in any way who were effectively stranded at the start of the strike. These are the actions that show who really is a racist party and who really is a party that is interested in, in upholding the dignity of particularly black people who are the majority in this country.
So I want to bring it to Solim Simang because, essentially, Helen Zille is not really going to be the one contesting for the premiership of Gauteng, even though we know she's going to be playing a big part in that in terms of the party's machinery. But Solim Simang is going to be the face of it. And those things that you've just mentioned, will the people of Gauteng be concerned about, one, will another party, for example, threaten the taxi industry? Will another party threaten municipal workers, if we look at what's happening in Tshwane? Will another party get rid of Panya, new opportunity that's been created? Are these things that are going to matter for them as they look at Solim Simang and what he stands for and what his party stands for as he battles for 2024?
Yeah, I think these are things that are going to matter. So we often make this mistake of thinking that if people are unhappy with the ANC, it must mean that they are happy with the DA. And that's not true, because the ANC in Gauteng received 50%, just over 50% at the last election, and the DA, in fact, actually lost 3 seats. So the DA itself did not increase its popularity or show itself to be a political party that the people wanted at the last election. And so the chances that they suddenly going to jump and now become popular are slim to none. And when we come to Soli himself, Soli was the mayor of Tshwane, and the DA has been running Tshwane for, since 2016 up until now, with a very brief Congress of the People mayorship. And we can see the degradation that has happened in Tshwane. I was there not long ago. There are clumps of earth on the streets. There's illegal dumping taking place. The streets are dirty. And, the city of Tshwane has deteriorated at a very fast rate, and in fact looks like the rest of the Gauteng that the ANC runs, that they are criticizing. And so I'm interested to see how they're going to try and pull the wool over people's eyes when they say that the DA can deliver a better government. My question is, deliver a better government where, when they have failed to provide that for the people of Gauteng, in Tshwane specifically? And I think also Solim Simang is not necessarily the cleanest candidate. He has been involved in some scandals. There was the scandal around him being accused of sexual harassment. There was also the scandal around him being beaten up by somebody who claims to be a business partner of his cousin. And all these things just kind of seemingly go away and become unresolved without him necessarily facing any, being held accountable in any way. Again, how is this different to the very ANC that they are criticizing? And so the DA likes to talk as if, they provide an alternative government to the ANC, and yet their leaders behave in exactly the same ways as the ANC and have shown us exactly the same problems. And so these are the questions that, the people of Gauteng are going to have to ask themselves, when they vote, if they're voting ANC or DA or EFF or any political party, what difference is this political party going to make? And when I look at Solim Simang, who used to run Tshwane, when I look at Tshwane and its state now, I don't see a difference, unfortunately.
Interesting that you bring that up, because as early as Thursday, I spoke to him and I brought exactly that. And I said, you've got these issues, this cloud that's hanging at the back of you, some of them playing quite publicly, some dodgy appointments that you had to deal with, including that of the municipal manager. I'm talking Glad Africa here. And he says, well, what's different about his leadership is that he doesn't run away from that stuff. He owns up to it and he rectifies it.
I don't agree. Like, where has he owned up and what has he rectified? We're still sitting, as I said, with question marks, as you said as well, hanging over him. And I think, if the DA wants people to believe that they truly are an alternative government, first of all, they actually have to show up in terms of numbers. To be a political party that, holds 27%, talking about, running, catching up to a political party that owns 50% is just laughable at this point. I'd like to see where Helen Zille's, I wish I could meet her maths teacher, because clearly they didn't do their job in teaching her the correct maths. Because here's the problem that people have, right? The ANC, as I keep saying, whether we like it or not, the ANC is a majority party. They're sitting at just over 50%. And so the chances that they're going to go from 50% to 27% or to 10% or to becoming a non-entity are actually quite slim. And conversely, the chances that the DA is going to go from being 27% to now suddenly running beyond, that 50% are also slim. And so we need to be realistic in, Helen Zille, the DA, Solim Simang, all of the leaders need to be realistic and honest about the state of where they are, because that is what is going to help them to gain the trust of South Africans, because nobody wants to listen to people who lie, with such a straight face. Because it is a lie to say that you're in a splitting difference when the difference is almost 50%. Because 50% versus 27%, that's almost 50% difference. And even if the ANC does go down, the ANC is still going to be a big political player in Gauteng, because they are likely to have a large number of votes. And if you look at even, the attempts that the DA has made to have this pact and the ways in which, they are now criticizing the ANC for having a dialogue that happened, by the way, under the auspices of the state. It's quite interesting to see that the DA is doing Moon Pact. Their Moon Pact fails and only attracts conservative, racist, nationalist, outdated political parties. The ANC holds a national dialogue, a much wider gathering of people, and a much more open process than the process of the Moon Pact that they have, and they want to criticize it for trying to get us to a point where there are rules around, coalition governments, because we can't go into the next election without any rules being put in place around who can and can't lead and the role of kingmakers. And, this thing of stopping these minority parties who barely get votes from now suddenly being kingmakers, which is against the democratic principles of the people shall govern, which means that, you want to get as close to the number of people representing being the people who are in government or in power. And I think that sometimes South Africans get confused by the fact that we because we understand diversity, we try and ensure that as many different people are in fact in parliament than would ordinarily if we had a straight up first past the post system. And I think, we also need to be clear about the fact that the DA itself, in a lot of these places where it is governing, it's not governing because it got the majority vote and people actually have a vote of confidence in them and said, we believe you can govern. No, it's governing mostly because of coalitions. And here's the irony of this, right? Solim Simang became the mayor of Tshwane in 2019 because he was supported by the EFF. The very same EFF that now we are being told is standing for racism, is, the opposite of what the people of South Africa want. The DA found it good enough to have the EFF as their partner. They found it good enough when the EFF was putting them in place, particularly Soli as a mayor. But now suddenly they're speaking about this political party as if they've never had anything to do with it.
So, I hold no brief for the Democratic Alliance or for Helen Zille, but they'll tell you that in Gauteng, maybe it's not 50%. The number's a little bit slimmer. ANC 36.4%, DA 28.8%, EFF 12.1%, Action SA taking a chunk of that also at about 8.8%, and then Freedom Front Plus is somewhere in there as well. So they would say, if you look at that, considering, of course, that the turnout was 75% of registered voters, and only 50% of those actually participated in the vote in 2021. They would say that picture could have changed at least now in 2024.
Well, this is, I'm glad you bring up the point of who actually voted and who is still out there as potential voters, because I think, we are living in a South Africa where the ANC has failed and is disappointing people, and opposition parties are failing to do the very basic act of convincing people that they are worthy of being handed over government. That's why, even though we've seen a reduction in ANC power, we haven't seen an overwhelming increase in the power of the political parties. In fact, the DA in the Western Cape, where they govern, they lost 5%. In Gauteng, where they want to govern, they lost 3 seats. And so they are also losing popularity. And as I've said, in municipalities, they're only in government, most of them, because they have coalitions, not because they have, these numbers. And so there are a number of factors that they keep forgetting. Number one, you've got the fact that independent candidates can now win, can now, contest. Number two, you've got a lot of political parties run by charismatic young people. You've got Rise Mzansi, you've got Arise, you've got, Build One SA, and many other platforms that are arising that have the potential to take a lot of votes from these incumbent or, these old head political parties, because people are tired of the kind of politics that the DA espouses of, vote for us so that we can kill the EFF and kill the ANC, rather than telling us what it is that South Africans need to vote for the DA for on its own, without putting it in a context of an ANC government. Because post-2024, whatever the outcome is, it's not based on whether the ANC lives or not. It's based on, what do the voters of South Africa want, and how do you ensure that you get the voters of South Africans. And if we see, for example, an increase in the number of people who make it to the poll, all of these political parties could be looking at a completely different picture. And so even the 27% that the DA takes for granted could go down. And in fact, you might even be surprised that the 50% that the ANC has could increase or could go down. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. And the job of, all of these political parties, particularly opposition parties, shouldn't be just telling us what makes them different to the ANC. It should also be about telling us why it is that they deserve governance. And unfortunately, the DA also suffers from the same malaise that the ANC suffers, which is that they are a sitting government in the Western Cape.
Right.
They are a sitting government in City of Tshwane, and people have seen their results and are able to judge for themselves on that basis.
Asanda, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng there.